Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. Well, we're going to be talking today about something that does appeal to some of us, but actually it appeals to all of us. And because if you're not in this conversation, you will be, or you know somebody who is. So now that I've really piqued your interest, please join me in welcoming Jannette Anderson to our program today. Welcome. How are you doing today, Jannette?
I am peachy, Deb. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, I was so honored to be on your podcast, and I can't wait to tell people more about it. But it was so much fun. And I said, oh my gosh, you've got to be on my podcast. And so that's why we have you here today.
Mm-hmm. It was great having you on because you are delightfully buoyant and also extremely knowledgeable and experienced. So it's a great combination.
Well, right back at you. We're going to have a great conversation. So let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will jump into this. So Jannette Anderson, like many of the women she works with, is not done by a long shot. The founder of Maturepreneur World. She is a business development expert with over 40 years of strategic planning, sales, and marketing experience. And she is still stupidly in love with what she does. Jannette has been a corporate trainer, taught marketing and entrepreneurship for universities and colleges, and done her time in the corporate trenches in roles ranging from print shop press operator to VP of professional services for a Canadian Fortune 500 company. Her breadth of experience and depth of expertise help people succeed at whatever stage they are at. Jannette is passionate about working with maturepreneurs to identify, claim, and position their value so they can make a meaningful difference and a magnificent living. Her other major passion, besides Scrabble and zip lining across jungles on 3 continents and counting, is facilitating personal transformation. So again, Jannette, welcome.
Thank you so much, Deb. I appreciate it.
Well, I always like, and, let me give just a little bit of information here because a lot of our folks are listeners and they can't see that you are this gorgeous maturepreneur woman with blue hair. Yeah. And so I love it. I love it. And I think it's been purple before, kind of, all sorts of shades.
Yeah, definitely not your grandma's blue hair.
This is true. Yeah. Grandma's blue hair was a weird shade of blue.
Yeah, no, that's not it. But my brand has been all about bodacity and being bodacious. Right. So one has to embody one's brand. So I typically have polka dot glasses or blue hair, that kind of thing. It does make it easy for people to find me in a crowd.
This is true. Right, right. Well, I always like to start the program by asking my guests how they got to where they are today, because I always think it's very interesting. So tell us how you've reached this stage in your life.
Okay, well, I'm going to take you way back because I think I came out of the womb entrepreneurial. I'm pretty sure I came out carrying a briefcase, which my mother didn't really appreciate.
Well, that would have hurt a bit.
Yeah, I think so. So I became entrepreneurial very early on, and I'll tell you the story of how and why. But I have basically been an entrepreneur most of my life. Like it said in my intro, I've done my time, and I really feel like that in the corporate trenches. But most of my life, I've had 4 iterations of my company, and it all started very early. When I was 5, I really wanted the book Heidi. I grew up with lots of drama and trauma and addictions and violence, and so books became my refuge. Right. So I learned how to read early, and I don't know why I wanted this book or who told me about it, but I really wanted it. And I begged my mom and begged my mom and begged my mom, as only a very determined Aries child can. And finally, one day she turned around and yelled, "No, we can't afford it." And Deb, I was so shocked, not by what she said, because I heard that a lot. We
Right.
can't do this, we can't do that, but by the look on her face. And I remember
Oh.
to this day, even though I was only 5, seeing the despair and the frustration and the sadness and the anger and the shame.
Right.
And I remember deciding, I don't remember much, but I do remember that moment. And I remember deciding I never wanted to see that look on another person's face, and that I was going to do something about it. I didn't, know what and so forth. But that has been my purpose ever since, to create a yes life for people, so that they don't have to have that despair from the no, living a no life. And so that what happened after that was, kids, we don't overcomplicate things. As we get older, become adults, we make everything very hard. So in my little brain, I went, oh, no money, get money.
Right.
And so I decided I was going to have a business, my very first business. And I had
Good for you. You were going to be a business woman.
Yes, I was going to have a business, and I had seen some people in our housing tenement have a garage sale. So I thought, okay, I'll do that, and I'll make money, and then I can get the book, right? Simple. So one day when Mom was at work, hauled everything that I could out of the house and priced it, because like I said, I came out entrepreneurial. I could count money before I could talk or read or anything else. And had a very successful garage sale. When she came home, I was so proud. I ran up to her and said, look, Mom, $13.72. Like, ask me what I did yesterday. I can't tell you, but I know I made $13.72 that day. It was a lot of money back then, and for a 5-year-old. And I expected her to be really pleased and proud.
Yeah, she was supposed to say, oh my gosh, Jannette, how wonderful.
Yes. Yeah, not what happened. So it did happen. The short version is I got spanked. She took my money. I had to go back and buy back stuff because
you weren't supposed to have sold her toaster.
No, I actually did sell her toaster. I did not, and small knickknacks and appliances and her favorite brand new fuchsia dress that. And my toys. Anyways, I got everything back except for my toys. The kids wouldn't sell me my toys, so I lost most of my toys.
But you kind of learned from that, right?
I learned a lot. I learned really 3 very important lessons that have stuck with me through my whole life. One is we can take our destiny into our own hands. Business. We can create what we want. It is a way to create solutions and to create a yes life. And so that became a passion from that point forward. The second lesson I learned is don't go into business with family. Oh my God.
No, or at least ask permission first.
Yeah. Don't sell their stuff without asking. So that time, semi-kidding. And the third one was that really, truly a yes life is possible when we take accountability for creating our results, right? So ever since then, I've been passionate about entrepreneurship. My next kind of major venture was my first franchise when I was 7. I had a lemonade stand, and I saw 3 other corners that I couldn't reach, and there was a lot of traffic. Well, methinks we have one of those TV tray things with the 4 TV trays. So
you've got 4 restaurants.
I got 3 other friends. I made 3 other signs. I got my mom to make us 3 other jugs of lemonade. I put them on the other corners. They kept 50% of what they sold. I got 50%. My first franchise. So
holy cow! You were 7?
Yep. And when I was 11, I had my first business with an employee. I had a daycare that I ran in the housing tenement we lived in. And there were days where I had up to 30 kids. And I had me and my 9-year-old that I used to babysit, my kid that I used to babysit as my employee. Those poor kids got peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every single day the entire summer. Except one day my mom made me give them bologna. And I charged $3 a kid per day, and I paid him $1 an hour, which was babysitting back then. You got 50 or 75 cents.
Right. So that was doing pretty good.
Yeah. And I made a killing. I made a lot of money that summer. Anyway, so I've been entrepreneurial my whole life is the point of those stories. And I do think it is not only a great way for us to solve problems and do and have what we want, but it's also a way for us to contribute our gifts. And it's a way for us to do what I call singing our note in the choir.
Right.
To create an and, like not an either or life. Either I can have this or I can have that. Either I can make a meaningful difference or I can make magnificent living. Well, what about the
why can't we do both?
Yeah. Both and. So that's what I'm a stand for. I'm a stand for the and.
Mm-hmm.
And now if we fast forward through many, careers and jobs, and I always win the weirdest job contest because I've had so many weird jobs, from being a stick in a gambling thing to the sideshow, the mystery woman in a sideshow, just all sorts of different things that you can name and not name.
Mm-hmm.
And for iterations of my business around business development, startup marketing, etc., and teaching marketing and so on, to now where, of course, as we change, our demographic changes. So for the past 10 years, I've been supporting predominantly women. I download about this whole thing called Bodacity and shifting the world from fear to love, one happy and empowered woman at a time. So I did that. Well, first I was in massive resistance and said, no, I'm pretty sure you mean this for Gloria Steinem or someone. It's not my gig. I don't even really like women. Go away. That's the conversation I had with the universe. But eventually I kind of gave in and went, oh, okay, now I get it.
The universe kind of smacks you upside the head on occasion.
Yeah, it says, and it's very persistent. Like kept getting the call. Finally, I very graciously surrendered, said, fine, leave me alone, I'll do it.
Yes.
And so then served women for about 10 years. And as I kind of got older, I realized I was on the marketer's cruise in 2020 and got smacked upside the head with ageism. I was in a networking situation. A guy asked me, what do you do? Mid-sentence answering him, he turns and starts talking to someone else. I'm like, well, what a dick. And so then I politely excused myself because I'm Canadian and went to another group. And and the exact same thing happened. And I was like, well, it can't be them. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not up. Maybe I'm, my energy is low. Like, no, I have blue hair, polka dot glasses, or, kind of, and I tend to stand out. I have quite a bit of energy like you, and I tend to stand out in the crowd. And it's like, no, that's not it. So what's going on? And as I looked around, every woman over 60 was completely ignored and overlooked, and some of the men. I was like, oh, ageism is not just notional, it's alive and well. Oh, how interesting. And not okay. And what I discovered, and not only overlooked, but actually some of the women in particular were actually invisible. People did not see them sitting right across the table from them. And I was like, oh my God, this is both fascinating and extraordinarily alarming. I started to dive deeper into the world of ageism and maturepreneurs and so on, and got fascinated with what I call the perfect storm of opportunity that's happening right now. There's 4 major global trends that are making this an incredibly unique time in history that center around maturepreneurs. So I'm super passionate about that. And so that's kind of the, fast version of my history as an entrepreneur and how I got here.
I love it. And the whole ageism thing just drives me nuts because, of course, now I'm in that demographic, right? And, I think the thing that annoys me the most is whoever's ignoring you or downplaying or, whatever, they are missing out on so much wisdom and experience and jokes and, all of that stuff, because they, and I don't know if they're thinking, oh yeah, grandma, no. And for one thing, I love talking to my grandma, she always had great stories and things like that. But yeah, and because, you see it in Canada, we see it here in the States. And it's one of the things that people just talk a lot about. They, especially once they're about 55-ish, is, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my job? Because a lot of times they might be paid more, right? Because they might have been with the organization a little bit longer. And so, if you go through cost saving, somebody's going to go, well, that we can save money by, and of course, that's the stupidest thing in the world, because then they've lost all that wisdom from that company.
Experience and expertise.
Right. And maybe they think, okay, we're going to get somebody younger and groom them. They're going to, but most people don't stay with companies all that long any longer. So, that doesn't work. And I think they also think, us older people are going to be sick. We're going to be whiny, well, what's, the younger folks have sick, whiny kids,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
right. And so
Or
it
they
all
get ill, or
balances.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And people are living longer now,
Mhm.
and
Right.
actually more healthfully than
Mhm.
people would have us believe, than the
Right.
media
Mhm.
have us believe, and are now working 20,
Mhm.
30, even 40 years
Mhm.
beyond what is traditionally
Mhm. Right.
retirement,
Mhm.
right? Both because they have to and they
Mhm.
choose to.
Mhm.
And so we really have to
Mhm.
redefine work and the
Right.
workplace and what
Mhm.
that means, because good luck trying to get a job after 55,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Right.
you're right. They will get laid off
Mhm.
because they get someone half their age and
Mhm.
half the price. The thing that they don't necessarily take into account, like you said,
Mhm.
millennials typically, statistically, stay with a job 2 to 2.5
Mhm.
years, and then they move. That's traditionally
Right.
their
Mhm.
pattern. It costs, if you're looking at mid-level to upper level
Mhm.
people, it costs 100 to 150
Mhm.
thousand dollars to replace
Mhm.
them, get them trained up, get them
Mhm.
functionally productive.
Mhm.
So every 2 to 2.5 years, you're spending an extra hundred thousand
Mhm.
dollars. That if you had someone like a boomer who was going to stay
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
you, you wouldn't be spending. So it's a
Right.
false economy. It's
Mhm.
not, you're not thinking it
Mhm.
through.
Mhm.
Um, Now, granted, sometimes those people um, can get quite set in their ways
Mhm.
as well. But I think there's this wonderful synergy that could be had in the
Mhm.
workplace with the kind of innovation,
Right.
I call it contextual
Mhm.
innovation, that
Mhm.
people who are older can bring, because they can kind of see the
Mhm.
big picture a lot more.
Mhm.
They consider that
We
big picture.
remember before 1980.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And we have some sense of history
Mhm.
where the progression of things have
Mhm.
been. It's not just, oh, well, we
Mhm.
tried that in
Mhm.
1947, it didn't work,
Mhm.
but a sense of what's worked, what hasn't,
Mhm.
and how we got here. Combine that with younger people's sense of innovation, where they
Mhm.
call it that blank slate, and
Right.
they don't have any of
Mhm.
that contextual. The two of them together
Mhm.
are magical.
Mhm.
Either of them separately are not as
Mhm.
effective. So if we
Right.
want to really innovate solutions to
Mhm.
some really challenging problems that are coming up
Mhm.
in the world, we need both
Mhm.
generations. We need
Right.
both
Mhm.
demographics to work
Mhm.
together to create those
Mhm.
innovations. And when we dismiss what will soon be
Mhm.
25% of the
Mhm.
population, we're losing that
Right.
innovation. We're losing
Mhm.
that groundedness and
Mhm.
that kind of brain trust.
Mhm.
And that's at our peril. That's not a
Right.
good idea.
Yeah. And we definitely need the youngsters, as I'm going
Yeah.
to call them, especially because of technology, right? There's that old cartoon that floated around for many years. Grandma calls the grandkid because she needs the clock reset on the VCR. Well, the
Yeah.
nice thing is all that stuff just automatic now. But those kids, from pretty much age 40 and younger,
Yeah.
grew up with technology attached to them.
Yes. Yeah.
And in many ways, like, truly, I mean, they were, I've seen, like the little baby walker scooter thingies.
Yeah.
And you can tell I don't have kids, right? That have the iPad holder or the phone holder. And now, granted, we grew up like that with TV. I remember my mom telling stories that when I was a wee one, she would put me in my bouncy city thingy, in front of the TV during when soap operas were on.
Uh,
And because soap operas have lots of close-ups, and I thought they were talking to me. And so it was a great babysitter. And I know that now we use tech to babysit the kids. But yeah, they just grew up with it.
yes.
And yeah, I need them to explain AI. I need them to explain, but we are the context for all of those things.
Yeah.
And so that's where it is such a good partnership when you have the generations together.
Absolutely. But I also think that there is a myth that older people aren't tech savvy.
Right.
Uh, and there are some who are not,
Mhm.
or tech resistant,
But there's
right?
also youngsters who aren't tech savvy. So,
Exactly. And many people in this demographic,
mhm,
what I call maturepreneurs, so people who are
mhm,
55 plus and
mhm,
hashtag not done by a long shot.
mhm,
That's what I call us.
mhm,
And they're either in the getting going phase or the
mhm,
keeping going phase. And what
mhm,
I mean by that is, what many people don't realize, I'll come back to these core trends, but 65% of North Americans, 65% of Canadians, and between 50 and 90% of Americans,
mhm,
and it's similar statistics in
mhm,
other countries like Europe and South
mhm,
America,
mhm,
can't afford to retire.
Right.
That means that they're anywhere on the spectrum from food and housing insecurity to just can't afford to take the vacations they thought they could when they retired. So they have to generate income. It's not optional. And like you said, good luck trying to get a job at 60 or
right. You could be a Walmart greeter.
72. Yeah. And there's only so many Walmarts. And frankly, people with PhDs probably don't want to be Walmart.
Right.
You know? And so it's not easy to get a job. There's ageism is alive and well in corporate America and around the world. And so we really haven't got any other choices but to become entrepreneurs. We want to generate some kind of income, to create some kind of venture that generates revenue for us.
Yeah, whether it's to make a living, or like you said, get enough money to go on vacation.
Yeah. Or just because we want to continue to contribute.
Right. I tell people I will retire the day I die.
Yeah, exactly. Because we enjoy making a difference. We have meaning. There's a statistic that says that people who have meaning, especially older in life, live 7 qualitative years longer. They're happier, they're healthier. When we don't have that, and when we're lonely, which is one of the epidemics that I also talk about, we live 8 years less. It's the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day, the World Health Organization says. And so that's a 15-year span in terms of quality of life that makes a big difference between being lonely and isolated, having purpose and meaning in our life. And so people need to do that, because the whole notion of retiring at 65 and dying at 75 is not the case anymore.
No.
We live an additional 20, 30, 40 years more. And so we don't want to spend a third of our life just knitting or just golfing. Like, that's boring. So we want to carry on with a bunch of other things that can either make a money or make a difference, or both. And that's what millions, literally millions and millions and millions of people around the world, just under 1 billion actually globally, are in the process of right now, is figuring out how to make a meaningful difference and a magnificent living.
Right.
It's a fascinating time in history.
Right. And I mean, we just saw a big example of that here in the States. We've got this presidential election going on. And, Joe Biden, our current president, had a very bad outing, and he is 81 years old. Now, there had been a lot of discussion about things, and 81 is getting kind of up there, right? But it's also kind of the average age. I mean, I forget what they say the average age of a president is, but it's getting up there. And shoot, Queen Elizabeth, she was very active up until shortly before she died. And we've certainly seen so many leaders around the world that have, they literally die of old age, holding whatever that position is. And so it's, but it is something that we look at. And now clearly, I mean, the mental capacity and the physical capacity is something that we need to look at. Can someone do whatever it is from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint? But I think the other thing is, it's exactly what you were saying. When we are active, our brains are better, and physically we're better. You sit at home and eat bonbons, you're going to get, you're going to gain weight probably, your brain is going to start shutting down. So then those things just happen. And it doesn't, and we assume, oh, that's natural. No, it's not.
It's not at all. And coming back to the earlier comment about technology, like I was about to say, I know so many older people who can run circles around people in terms of technology. Right. My friend Patricia is a video whiz. There's a lady here in Calgary called Marjorie, or her name's Marjorie Zingle, and she won a top 8 over 80 award because 7 over 70. She started her first tech business at 69. She bought a data center. She's the only woman in the world, I think, that's running a data center like this. And at 89, she's expanding, taking on an additional 20,000 square feet, expanding that business and starting a tech business. And her comment was, I'm not slowing down, you just need to keep up.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There are so many people like that. Now, those are also outliers. There's people
Mm-hmm.
who just want to go and work a catering
Mm-hmm.
job to get additional
Right.
income.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is great.
Mm-hmm.
What's not okay is the systemic ageism
Mm-hmm.
that makes it difficult for us to do
Right.
that. So,
Right. Mm-hmm.
good luck trying to get a loan or
Mm-hmm.
venture capital or even
Mm-hmm.
business insurance if you're over
Mm-hmm.
60. Good luck trying to be taken seriously in
Mm-hmm.
some circles, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, that needs to change because,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, these people are going to be working 20,
Mm-hmm.
30, even 40 more
Right.
years.
Mm-hmm.
And so y'all just need to get over
Mm-hmm.
yourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, and of course, the younger generation, they're going to have even longer lifespans.
Yeah.
And so they need to realize that what they're doing is going to happen to them,
Yes.
and so why not reverse that trend to make sure it doesn't happen to them?
Exactly. Well, and we really need to, as a society, shift our thinking because
Mm-hmm.
what I have heard is that people being born now
Mm-hmm.
will live to 130. So
Mm-hmm.
65 is literally middle
Right.
age.
Halfway. Mm-hmm.
And so they need to figure out, okay, well, obviously they can't retire at 65 if
Mm-hmm.
they're going to live to 130 unless they
Mm-hmm.
plan on having enough money for
Mm-hmm.
65 years
Right. Mm-hmm.
in the bank,
Mm-hmm.
and enough to do to keep them happy.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many people, well, 1 in 3 people who retire, in
Mm-hmm.
other words, go into retirement,
Mm-hmm.
quit their jobs, etc., like your
Mm-hmm.
husband just did, are unhappy and struggle in retirement
Right.
because there is such a sense of identity that we have from
Right.
what we do.
Yeah. They
And
were the vice president of, they were the person who did X, whatever it is. Mm-hmm.
we define ourselves by our roles,
Mm-hmm.
by our accomplishments,
Mm-hmm.
by our money, by various
Mm-hmm.
things. When we're not that, then who are we?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're not doing what we did, then who are we if we're
Right.
not?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where a lot of people really struggle in retirement, that and financial stressors.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, what do you do with your life to have that sense of
Mm-hmm.
meaning and purpose? Because that's the real thing that is the game
Right.
changer.
Yeah.
If you don't have something that gets you out of bed in the morning, you're going to age fast and not well.
Right. And even if you didn't really like your job, it still gave you that sense of purpose.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, and there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of kind of propaganda around retirement. It used to be that it meant you stop working. Well, what if that's not what it means? What if it means that you now live a mobile lifestyle? What if it means that you now can be a philanthropist? What if it means that now you have a part-time gig that you love doing as an artist? Or there are so many possibilities that people just, when we get out of the brainwashing of what it has been and into the possibilities, there's a lot of opportunities right now for really reinventing what does it mean to age, sage, and live at the stage of life.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned my husband. So he officially retired as of August 31st. Now he was able to take early retirement. So he retired at 62. And, and the nice thing is, that was his choice. He could have kept working, but he was ready financially. We have, those ducks are pretty much in a row. Those little ducks, they might waddle off, but you can kind of drag them back in. But it was, and I was sharing, he's got projects to get through probably the end of the year. And we've got some trips planned and some things like that. But then it's like, then what? And now he has always volunteered. And so he's really looking forward to being able to do that more. And, and so that's kind of fun to see him do that. Because of Social Security and all that, and it's above my head. He can only, if he got a part-time job, he can only work a certain number of hours. But yeah, he's looking forward to that. But at some point, somebody's going to go, no, we're going to deal with somebody younger. Even though he has that knowledge, he has that expertise, he has that free time, right? You can't have somebody volunteering weekdays for something, because the people who are, the younger paid people, that's when they work. And so that, they need those volunteers, to be able to do that.
Interestingly, I just talked to someone not long ago, and they they had a couple of older gentlemen that wanted to volunteer, and they couldn't let them because they couldn't get them insured because they were over
Ah.
60.
Mm-hmm.
So even some of those opportunities are not actually available
Right.
for people. And really, I think the bigger question, Deb, is who do you want to be in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Like what lights you up? What
Right.
makes you happy?
Mm-hmm.
What is the contribution that you
Mm-hmm.
want to be? And
Mm-hmm.
what do you want your epitaph to be?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to be the,
Mm-hmm.
what do you call it, your legacy, or
Mm-hmm.
just simply, you know, I'm not a big legacy person. I don't have kids. I don't have a lot of family,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not, you know, legacy is not a word that ever really
Mm-hmm.
resonated with me until someone said to me the other day, you're thinking about your legacy, what you leave in the future
Mm-hmm.
is something that um, helps you be who you want to be now. So by
Mm-hmm.
throwing your anchor in the
Ah.
future, it informs who
Mm-hmm.
you're being now.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of looked at that and went, you know, that actually really
Mm-hmm.
does serve me and
Mm-hmm.
motivate.
Mm-hmm.
When we look back from the end of our life or beyond,
Mm-hmm.
who do we need to be now? What do we
Mm-hmm.
need to do in order
Right.
to have that be the
Mm-hmm.
outcome? And I think that's an important conversation for
Mm-hmm.
people to have in their own hearts and minds
Mm-hmm.
with their partners.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do we want our marriage to
Mm-hmm.
look like going forward, or our
Mm-hmm.
relationship? What do I want my family life to be
Mm-hmm.
like going forward? It's a time of kind of redefining
Mm-hmm.
and reinvention.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is a blank slate. So what
Right.
are you going to put on that slate? What are you
Mm-hmm.
going to write on this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
this chalkboard or
Mm-hmm.
whatever? I'm trying to think of a smart board. On what are you going to write on your
That's
smart
it. Yeah, yeah. You know, the
that is
digital something or other.
yeah, exactly. That is the defining the vision for
Mm-hmm.
the next 20, 30, 40 years,
Right. Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that that's a really important exercise for
Mm-hmm.
people to do at various stages of life.
Mm-hmm.
But what is your vision for
Mm-hmm.
you? What is your vision for your
Mm-hmm.
business? If you're going to create one, what is
Mm-hmm.
your vision for your marriage, for your
Mm-hmm.
family
Right.
going forward? How do you want
Mm-hmm.
it to be? What do you want to do? What do you want
Mm-hmm.
to have? And then what do you need to do to bridge the gaps between what that vision
Mm-hmm.
is and where you are
Mm-hmm.
currently? I think
Right.
that's a really important and valuable exercise for
Mm-hmm.
people to do, that and determine their why, figure out
Mm-hmm.
their
Mm-hmm.
purpose. Why do you do what you do?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you care about that? What's your purpose in life?
Mm-hmm.
When we are coming from that state of purpose, when we're on, I call it on purpose or aligned,
Mm-hmm.
we're happier, we're more grounded, we're
Mm-hmm.
more gratified, we're
Mm-hmm.
more um, there's more meaning,
Mm-hmm.
and so we feel more valuable,
Mm-hmm.
and that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
get some help,
Mm-hmm.
have, having someone help you determine what is my purpose,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not easy to see. That's something that's usually
Mm-hmm.
right on the end of our nose. We
Right.
can't see it. It really helps to get
Well,
a
like
close.
you said, for so many years, your purpose was your job or your company or whatever it was. And now, now what do I do?
Well, and I don't think our job or what we do is our
Mm-hmm.
purpose. I think our purpose is, I call it the intersection between what we are healing from the past,
Okay.
what we long for the future for
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and others.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a thread that weaves through the
Mm-hmm.
tapestry of our life and
Mm-hmm.
is consistent.
Mm-hmm.
It's why we do what we
Mm-hmm.
do, it's not what we do.
Right. Yeah. The
Then,
purpose could be having wonderful children, a great marriage, whatever it is. And what you do is what allows you to do that.
yeah, and even that is a thing that we have, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to why we do what we
Mm-hmm.
do. So, you know, my purpose is that I want you to get that you matter
Mm-hmm.
and live like you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been my purpose. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to create a yes life. That's
Mm-hmm.
part of what my, you know, as a kid, my determination was.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to have a yes life
Mm-hmm.
because you matter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of living like you
Mm-hmm.
do. So whether I'm facilitating personal development
Mm-hmm.
courses, which I've done my whole life, or I'm helping an entrepreneur determine what difference they want to make in the
Mm-hmm.
world, or I'm teaching a university course,
Mm-hmm.
underneath it all, my purpose
Mm-hmm.
is that I want you to get that you
Mm-hmm.
matter. And I want you to be able to live like you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that informs everything I do. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how I express it, how I live into it,
Mm-hmm.
changes
Right.
along the way. That's I call
Mm-hmm.
my stand, is how I'm currently living into it. You can live into your purpose in your family. You can live into your
Mm-hmm.
purpose in your job. You can live
Mm-hmm.
into your purpose in what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
now. it gets expressed differently, but I think our purpose is consistent through our life. It's I call it the note that we sing in the choir. And the choir is just not as sweet without that note.
Right.
So,
it still is okay, but it's missing something.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So our note matters. And that's why I think it's really important for people to figure out, what is your note? What is your why? What is that purpose? And then how do you want to live into it now? Because you've lived into it your whole life in different ways, consciously or unconsciously. Now, how do you want to consciously step into that?
Right. Well, and I think in some cases, people haven't lived into it, for whatever reason. And that's sad, because, they weren't able to do whatever it was that really would have given them joy and purpose and all of those things. And so, it's great that now they might actually have that opportunity, but it's also scary, right? Because you were in this little box, right? And that little box all of a sudden is gone. And and now what do you do?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Well, and I think, sometimes we live a life of shoulds and have tos, of expectation, obligation, whatever that may be. And for many people at this stage to go, what do I want, is like deer in the headlights time.
Right.
I don't know. I've always put everyone else first. I have no idea what I want. It's a wonderful time to explore that. And yes, that can be scary. But again, get a coach, get some support, get therapy, whatever you need, whatever resonates, to find out, who am I now? What do I want now? And how do I create that? Because it's just about asking better questions. And one of those questions is, what do you love? What's your creative zone of genius? What's the thing that would kind of excite you, light you up, meaning and purpose now?
Right.
And that's often so much easier to find in the listening of another person who can really help you define that and tease it out, because we're just too close to it. We're the pickles inside the jar. We can't see the lid.
Right. Well, and sometimes nobody cared to ask.
Yes.
And and that again is another thing that is very sad, is and it I shouldn't say they didn't care, because sometimes there's a lot of care, a lot of love, all those things. Maybe it's that it never occurred to them to say, what do you want? And things like that. And then we got used to not saying what we wanted.
Exactly. And for many people, especially a lot of women, they put themselves at the bottom of the list.
Right. Because you were raising the family, you were the wife, you were the whatever.
And so one of the things that they can do now is make a list of, what are some of the things that I'd like to do. What's fascinating is how quickly that they get to the end of the list and go, now I don't know what to do. So take a look at, I often encourage you, go look at like bucket list websites, or go look at, 101 or 1001 things to do before you die, the book kind of thing, to get some ideas and some inspiration. Look around your community. Who's doing something interesting that you go, oh, that would kind of be fun.
Right.
Take a look at people you admire. What is it you admire about them? How do you incorporate more of that in your life? When you're really considering what's possible, you can do an exercise where you write out your ideal day, week, month, whatever, and who's in it, what are you doing, what things are you doing? If money and time and there was no constraints whatsoever, what would that ideal life look like? Where are you living? Do you live in a treehouse, or do you live on a yacht? What are what are you doing? Where are you living? And what would be just the most juicy, wonderful, ideal scenario? Write it out without constraints, and then let it be for a couple of days. Come back and look at it and go, what really matters to this person? Look at it with, kind of objective eyes. If this was someone else, what really matters to them? What's kind of the touchstones that are underneath the things? What are significant, and how can you start incorporating that now? First time I did that exercise, I came back to it and I read, and I noticed that there's 3 or 4 references to sound. Like I had an amazing stereo system throughout my house. and I was taking saxophone lessons and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because I had never thought of myself as an auditory person.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point forward, I just started paying more attention
Mm-hmm.
to my sound environment.
Mm-hmm.
I was more conscious about
Right.
music, silence,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me happier
Mm-hmm.
immediately. And it was just by incorporating one little
Mm-hmm.
thing I noticed
Mm-hmm.
in this ideal life.
Mm-hmm.
Our ideal life is not someday when,
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
How do we start
Right.
incorporating components
Mm-hmm.
of it right now
Mm-hmm.
and building towards the things that we do want?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I talk to people about that, especially, coming from a place of chronic illness,
Yeah.
because, we have our bucket list, and I tell people, you don't know what tomorrow is going to have. So, and hopefully everybody has bucket lists. Again, I'd feel really sad if somebody didn't say, I want to do X. I tell people, okay, so look at that and then
Mm-hmm.
figure out, how can I move it up? Now, one of the examples I give is, somebody might want to travel around the world.
Yeah.
That might not be possible, but you put it on the list. So then when you go, okay, I can't do that because finances, health, whatever, what can you do? So you can go to museums, you can read, how can you still get kind of that experience
Mm-hmm.
in a different way? And now I will tell you, I put something on my bucket list several weeks ago, and I told my husband, and his eyebrow went up, but it wasn't, no, we can't do that. I told him, I said, I want to, now we like to take cruises, but not the big ship cruises. We did that and went geek. And so I said, I want to take a small boat cruise
Mm-hmm.
to Antarctica.
Oh, yeah.
Would I see? And there are some people that would think, oh God, no. Now I did grow up in Colorado, so the cold wouldn't phase me. But I want to go see the penguins. I want to go see, but there is, but it's like, okay, this is not someday.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I'd like to do it within a couple of years. So what do we need to do to make that happen?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the thing is, what do you need? What passions are out there that you can make happen sooner rather than later? And again, okay, well, maybe you can't travel around the world, but you're going to take a flamenco class dancing, right? And so how can you make those dreams come true?
Yeah.
In a way that works.
Well, and I would even say, I would caution people against saying, well, I can't afford it or I can't do
Right.
this.
Because you never know.
86 the can'ts, because you said a brilliant question. The question is, how do I make this work? If you ask that question first, you're going to get way more powerful answers than if you start from a compromising position. One of the things that I discovered, because I've traveled to 36 countries and counting.
Have you been to Antarctica? Am I going to beat you there?
You're going to beat me there because it's not on my list. It's way down on my list. However,
you did say you didn't like cold.
No, I don't. I hate cold. So Arctic and Antarctica are not even on the list. But I did see penguins at Cape Hope in South Africa.
Okay.
The only place that these tiny little penguins live. They're so cute. So I did see them there, and they were very cute. And I swam with great white sharks there, and I did a bunch of stuff in South Africa that was very cool. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So one of the ways that I could make that happen was, you can travel, for instance, to places and go to a language school. I did in Belize and Honduras. And then, this was 2007, 2006, for $150 a week, you live with the family. So you get 7 nights accommodation, you get 2 or 3 meals a day, you get 20 hours of one-to-one tutoring. So a half day of tutoring with a teacher on a language. And then you've got the other half day to explore, and they take you on little cultural excursions for $150 a week. Well, for less than what it would cost to rent an apartment here, I can live for a month in Antigua and experience there and do that around the world.
Right.
So you can find ways to travel and do things in different ways and make it feasible. So the question is, how do I make it happen? Way more empowering than can I? Because your natural answer is probably going to be, oh no, I can't. I don't have time.
Right. Yeah.
How do I make it work?
Yeah. And there you really have to think outside the box. I had a guest on, and it's been several years ago. Gosh, I don't even remember his name now, who, and you and I were talking about this before the program. He is a professional house sitter, but for very remote, far away places. And
Yeah.
so when I talked to him, he was, I believe, in Australia.
Yeah.
And he was there for several months at this house because this person was traveling and they had a cat.
Yeah.
And, so his entire responsibility was feed the cat.
Yeah.
Cat could have cared less that he was there, just cat needed fed. And he lived in this absolutely fabulous place, pretty much rent free. I mean, he still had to buy his food and things like that. And he was part of a service that had vetted him and done all the background checks and things like that. But that was, he had no problem with that. And, he was not married. It was perfect for him. The job that he had, well, he was a consultant, and he said, you just have to adjust your hours to, but he went to incredible locations just because he was willing to go and take care of somebody's cat.
Exactly. I did that for over a year. And in that year, I spent a total of maybe $3,000 on accommodations for Airbnbs in between the house sits. So basically, my entire year of accommodations was free. Because I live a mobile lifestyle, I gave my cat to a friend. This way I get to take care of animals, but I'm like a grandparent. I get to give them back. And
yes, I'm done. Here, have it back.
Yeah.
Spoil them and have them back.
All of the benefits of, cuddle time with none of the responsibility. I get to live for free in usually very interesting places. So yes, it's not a lifestyle that suits everyone, but it's an alternative.
Right.
There's just so many different options when you get creative and you stop thinking of traditional the way it's supposed to be, because it's not supposed to be any particular way these days. And frankly, the only constraint is, for me, for a maturepreneur, for someone who's working, is do they have internet, and are you willing to be up in the middle of the night if you've got clients across the world?
Yeah.
Right.
And that could happen here in the United States. I might be dealing with people, across the world.
Network. Yeah, exactly. And so it's really open to what the possibilities are when you think from that perspective. I mentioned those 4 trends before. Right now is just this amazing pivotal time in history where we're redefining the rules of the game. So the first trend is that there's more entrepreneurs coming into the marketplace now than any time in history. Because of all the boomers and Gen Xers, plus all the people from COVID that started jobs, businesses because they didn't want to go back to their jobs. So there's more entrepreneurs ever in history. And ironically and interestingly, very few people are targeting them and serving them, especially the older demographic. And there's, like I mentioned, the second trend is what I call a poverty epidemic that is surprisingly not on the radar of most people. It's not in the media. If 65% of the population had COVID, it would be all over everywhere.
Right.
Less than 65% did, and it was the news for a year and a half. 65% of people can't afford to live. That's a big epidemic that no one is addressing.
Right.
In the States, it varies, and in Canada, it kind of varies. But basically, if you get basic government Social Security here, called CPP, Canada Pension Plan, OAS, Old Age Assistance, and GIS, Guaranteed Income Supplement, for most people, that has you below the poverty line. The amount of money you get keeps you below the poverty line. So you cannot afford to retire unless you've got other kinds of incomes and so forth. So they have to keep working. Largest cohort have to keep working. Conversely, the most wealth in one demographic's hands ever in history is in the hands of boomers right now. 79.5% of wealth in the world is in the hands of boomers right now. It's transferring to Gen Xers and millennials. But that's literally,
as we die, it goes to them.
We're early, like a lot of people are doing that earlier, right? But what that means is they have an incredible buying power. And yet, Deb, what do you see as commercials that target us?
Oh,
Depends, adult,
vitamins, hair,
seniors' homes, and those stair lift thingies that take you up the stair. No one's talking to the 80% of us that are still working and that are still dynamic and still want to make a difference in the world. No one's targeting us. And it's like trillions of dollars in these people's hands, and you're not talking to them. What is wrong with you? Give your hand a shake. And then the fourth thing is the loneliness epidemic. It's a big thing around the world that people are kind of overlooking a bit.
Mm-hmm.
1 in 4 people in North America claim to be lonely,
Mm-hmm.
having it impact their mental health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And especially since COVID, that's been an issue. And it's exacerbated for older people because we tend to be more isolated, and for entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs.
Right. Yeah. We're working in our spare bedroom and not going out. Mm-hmm.
And so when you put that together, you've got a bunch of people who really need community.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important for us to find communities of interest. And yet, if you go look in the maturepreneur world where older people are, there is no communities, there's no events, there's no activities, there's no groups, or very few, and the few that exist are
or there are for old people.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of stuff about ageism and aging, and there's lots of stuff about retirement, but you know, AARP needs to wake up, and CARP and all of the organizations that serve retired people need to wake up and recognize they're only representing 20% of the market. They're only lobbying and advocating for 20% of the people who can afford to and choose to retire. The other 80% of us are getting no lobbying, no advocating. So that's why I'm creating the Maturepreneur World. This confluence of these 4 events is creating an amazing opportunity. I call it the storm of opportunity in history for amazing businesses to serve that demographic, for communities to be created to serve that demographic, for people to contribute and start to redefine how we do business. I like to say the face of business is changing. It's getting a lot more wrinkled, and that's a good thing. We need to get used to that. So there's this amazing opportunity, but very little support. And that's why I'm so passionate about creating the Maturepreneur World. We need help for this group, and we need to be visible, financially abundant, and valued. So that's the purpose of this organizations that I'm building, or the platform I'm building.
Well, and you have built a community, and it is, you know, you've got all sorts of things, but you do have a membership portion of it. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a podcast called the Maturepreneur Podcast,
which was what I was on.
For those who are too,
you know, it is hard for me sometimes though to realize I'm that old.
I know. It catches up on you. It's like, huh. I told the first person, someone asked me if I wanted the seniors deal. I said, you take that back.
Oh yeah. But I've been known to get very testy with people who ask me if I, and then I'm like, okay, am I vain or am I cheap? Yeah. And it's all depending on how I'm feeling that day.
It's like, sure, bring it on, whatever. So the Maturepreneur Network, which is what you're referring to, is a great community of people, virtual community, those who are, again, hashtag not done by a long shot, and who we do accountability and goal setting, we do networking, we do group coaching and masterminding, and we have expert speakers come on and present about topics that help you with the inner and outer game of business and life. And it's a low cost, $49 a month. It's the most value and support you're going to get for the least amount of money. For Americans, is actually even less, because that's 49 Canadian. And it's at maturepreneur.world. So maturepreneur, the last half of entrepreneur, .world, and it's a great way to connect with people who are either, like I said, getting going or keeping going, and who just need support, resources, encouragement, community, collaboration to make the difference that they're here to make.
Right.
The third thing that I'm doing is creating an educational platform that has curated coaches and programs and agencies to help people hit the ground running, because nobody got time to go get an entrepreneurial degree. So
no, and who wants to go back to college? Ooh, yeah.
Well, some do, but like if you really want to grow a business, an entrepreneurship degree is not going to actually help you. You need targeted learning that you need. So we've got that education platform, and in May I'm doing the Maturepreneur Conference for those who are refiring, not retiring, because there's so many of us that are refiring, finding who we are, what we want to do, and there's no events for that. Like I said, lots of events on retirement, lots of events on ageism, but no events for the rest of us that are not done. So we're doing that in May. It's live and online. It'll be in Calgary. Information on that's at the same place, maturepreneur.world. Plus, there's a magazine in the offing, possibly a professional association, nonprofit, a bunch of things. But basically, my goal is to make sure that maturepreneurs are seen, valued, respected for the contribution that we have made and still have to make, and that they're financially abundant so that we can be the difference that we're here to be.
Right. Yeah, you are definitely not done yet.
Not done. Not by a long shot. Lots to do.
Right. Yeah.
There are days where I would like to be done. Like, there are days where I'm a little tired, and so I take the day off and I go and rest and I recoup. Right. And then I think about my why, and I think about the fact that, there aren't people advocating for these people. And, I just was talking to Sam Bennett, who wrote a great book called The 15-Minute Method. I highly recommend it, especially for anybody who's getting going or keeping going. And she said, she's got this voice in her head that says, do you want to make a difference to these people? And I have that voice in my head all the time. The answer is yes. Because I am these people. I am that person who couldn't afford to retire. My goal is to make over $1 million within 2 years so that I can show people it can be done. Right. You don't have to, think that's it. I'm screwed. There's no other options. I am done. You aren't. You can always, as long as you're on this side of the dirt,
not looking up.
Yeah, you can do something about your situation.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been so much fun, but I have to go back to the very start of the program. Did you buy Heidi? Were you able to buy the book?
Oh, thank you for remembering. Yes, I actually did. A couple of weeks later, my mother relented and went and bought me the book. And by the way, it remains my favorite book to this day. And I still have a copy of it that I got when I was younger, not the original one, but one I got later when I was a teenager. So yes, she did eventually relent and go and get it for me. So yes, it does still remind me that we can take our destiny into our own hands. We can use our gifts and our talents to make a difference in the world when we're willing to, grab life by the ovaries and go for it.
I love it. I love it. So much fun. Well, this really has been absolutely fascinating. And like I said at the very start, if you are listening or watching this and you're not quite in that demographic yet, you will be. And so and be thinking about, if you are that younger demographic, what can us old folks teach you? And I tell you what, it's a lot. You might know how to do AI, but I'm figuring it out. And more importantly, I remember before AI, I remember before computers, right? Or, like when we had these big, massive things with the dumb terminals and all sorts of stuff, and we remember those things. I never touched a computer till I was in college.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty smart.
Here's the thing. We can add up change without a calculator.
I know. Now I might have to stop and think about it and maybe use my fingers, but yeah, and I can write in cursive. Now I can't exactly drive a stick shift. I never could. I mean, that was one of those, that was, but yeah, we can, and we used to dial phones, right? And they were attached to the wall. And remember when we wander around and then we wrap the cord around our neck because we get all tangled up. But that was it worked just fine. We survived.
And the thing is, now I like I said, I know people who are older who will run circles around you. So we are not all, living back in the past. We are thriving in this century and beyond. In fact, by the way, we created the internet. We created all the things that So yes, we may in some cases be a little less tech savvy, but don't assume that's the case. That's just ageist. And by the way, there's a great blog called Yo, Is This Ageist? Written by Ashton Applewhite. I highly recommend everybody look at it because it's really insidious how we talk to ourselves, our language, how we talk about aging. it's so denigrating and toxic in such subtle ways. Even someone saying you look good for your age. Well, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah. I'm sorry. What does that mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I'm, what does 64 look like? And, so even subtle little things like that are kind of a reverse insult or an insult.
Right.
So
And when we think them of ourselves, that's even worse.
exactly. So we need to really start becoming aware of what ageism is, how insidious it is, how it impacts us, so that we can start to shatter those stereotypes, reverse it, and make space for a whole new way of being in the world. Like what was is not now.
No.
And we need to look to the future and go, okay, what's possible when, by 2050, we will be 25% of the population. So when 1 in 4 people are older than 65, that's going to have an impact. So we better get proactive about what that impact is and have it be a positive impact.
Most definitely. I love it.
Stand for.
Right. I love it. Well, we have to do this again. This has been so much fun, and hopefully it's opened some eyes and made people think. So we will definitely have you on again. Until then, do you have any, and you've said several, so it's like, oh my gosh, but do you have any final thoughts that you really want to leave everyone with?
Well, I want a couple quick things. One is, if you're thinking of getting going, just do it. Like, pitter patter, let's get at her. The world needs you and your gifts and your talents. And by the way, what you think of doing naturally and it comes easily to you, that is exactly what is valuable. Don't dismiss it as, well, everybody can do that. No, they can't. You have a unique talent and gift. Bring that to the world, charge well for it, and use that as your way of making the difference that you're here to make. If you're keeping going, remind yourself of your why. We lose sight of our purpose, and therefore we lose sight of that enthusiasm, that momentum, that impetus. So come back home to your why it matters, whatever you do, and why you matter. That'll give you that renewed enthusiasm for the next 20 years. So whether you're getting going or keeping going, whether you're younger or older, doesn't matter. I would encourage you to be the difference that only you can be in the world, because this choir is not as sweet without your note.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I have been having so much fun speaking with Jannette Anderson, the founder of Maturepreneur World. And I'm Deb Creer. Everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.